Okay, so welcome back. I haven't made a video in a while. Today, I want to start a new series on my movie channel. I love James Bond movies. I've had people in the comment section when I did my Blu-ray collection, they were like, "Man, you love Bond. You got all the Bond movies." As of right now, I don't. The official Bonds. I sold Thunderball. I might want to get that back, not because I love the movie. I mean, it's been a couple years since I've seen it, but for James Bond, it might be the only time where I'm like, yeah, I'll just complete the whole thing because there are aspects of every movie that's good. But what I wanted to do was go back, rewatch every Bond movie, and then give you my review of them. And then when I'm all done with watching all of them, I want to finally like put them all together and do a ranking. And I'm a big fan of a lot of other Bond channels. The one that I think the guy's name is Calvin Dyson. He was the one that I've mentioned before when I was doing my Blu-ray stuff, talking about you guys need to go check out his channel because he's the true Bond guy, and he makes like a Bond video. I want to say like he makes a new YouTube video like at least once a week, and it's all James Bond stuff. And obviously, like we haven't had a James Bond movie for a year and a half. New one's coming out. Well, I say new one's coming out. New one's getting worked on, from what I hear. Uh, I like writing scripts. I'm trying to come up with my own James Bond script. If anyone ever sees this, that I don't know, has the ability to even like make a difference working on that movie, yeah, hit me up because I'd love to give you my thoughts on what I think a good Bond movie would need to have. But anyway, so all I did for this segment and for what I'm going to do moving forward is there's currently 25 official James Bond movies. I don't count the original Casino Royale and I don't count Never Say Never Again because to be honest, all I've heard from most people is those movies suck. I've never tried to see the original Casino Royale. I tried to watch Never Say Never Again. I got through maybe 3 minutes, and the opening title sequence before you get to the song, I just couldn't do it. I was like, this is terrible. I was like, the fight choreography is terrible. Anyway, so I don't count those. So the rest of them, they each have a number as far as which one, like in the order they came out. And I just went 1 through 25 last night. I did random number generator, and I haven't seen all the Bond movies. Just to be fair, there's ones that I grew up with that I know kind of like the back of my hand. There's other ones I've seen once, maybe twice, and then there's a few that I haven't seen. And anyway, luckily for me, last night I hit number 12, which was For Your Eyes Only. So, For Your Eyes Only came out in 1981. It was directed by John Glenn. I've heard he did a lot of the Roger Moore ones. I don't remember if this was his first one or not. I think this might have been his first one. But anyway, stars Roger Moore as James Bond. This is Roger Moore's fifth in the series. Because let me just make sure I got this right. Because before this, he did Live and Let Die. He did Man with the Golden Gun. He did Spy Who Loved Me. And then he did Moonraker. I have seen... So, I mean, you guys will find out my rankings eventually, but I grew up on Live and Let Die. Love that one. Man with a Golden Gun, I think I've gotten halfway through and never finished, or maybe I saw bits and pieces growing up. Because Spike TV, if you grew up in America, Spike TV used to have basically all the Bond movies. Now I don't even know where they run, but because Spike TV is not a thing anymore. So, yeah, so I like I said, Man with the Golden Gun, I'm not completely unfamiliar with, but I need to like finish it. The Spy Who Loved Me, I had heard so many good things. So I believe a year ago I went back and I watched it. And I remember liking it, but I want to rewatch that one to be more familiar with it. And then Moonraker. Moonraker might be I don't know. It might be like one of the first couple James Bond movies I ever saw. But I only saw it one time when I was like maybe like 7 at a friend's house. And I liked it, but I finally rewatched that one about a year ago, same time as Spy Who Loved Me. And I want to rewatch that one as well because... when you try to stack up the James Bond movies as far as where they rank against the other ones, I mean, it's hard when you introduce a new one. Like, for instance, like I said, I just watched For Your Eyes Only for the first time last night, and where I rank it amongst the other ones as of right now, it's hard because I need to be more refreshed with the ones that I've maybe only seen once. Anyway, so For Your Eyes Only, I will try to get the basic synopsis right on these, and if I'm wrong, don't try to kill me on these guys. I'm just trying to do the best I can. So... basically, the plot is there's a system. I believe it's called an ATAC system. Don't ask me exactly what it stands for. Basically, it's a computer guidance system as far as like how to tell the ships where to go. Like basically, Britain's nuclear missiles or the subs that have nuclear missiles. It basically is a guidance system to like coordinate their attacks, I guess, in this world. And at the very beginning of the movie, the ship that and by the way, there's going to be spoilers, guys. This movie's 41 years old, so give me a break. If you don't want spoilers, obviously don't watch this review. I just don't see the point in reviewing these without doing spoilers. So the ship that is on, you think at first it's like a fishing boat. And anyway, it shows, which is the cool spy stuff. It shows that it's actually a secret vessel that has like, you know, this war room kind of thing in like the bottom half of the ship. And anyway, soon after, like they introduce like the ATAC system, there's like a special bomb that happens. The bomb blows the ship up. And then basically that's how we start them. Well, I should get into that. Before we get to that point, the first scene is James going to his wife from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, her tombstone, and then a priest shows up and he's like, Mr. Bond, there's a helicopter coming for you. M wanted to send for you, I think is what he says. And that helicopter gets hijacked by Blofeld. Now, at the time that this happened, everyone mostly knows this, that there was a legal issue going on with the rights to Blofeld, where I forgot what the guy's name is. He's the guy that did Never Say Never Again, because he believed he had a right to that character, and I don't think he felt like he was getting compensated or something. And yeah, so he made Never Say Never Again. Like I said, maybe I can't speak to it, but I've never heard anyone say like anything positive about that movie, so I just feel like I'm good. I probably don't need to ever see it. But yeah, Blofeld in this, it's like a 10-minute sequence, I feel like, where James is having to navigate with the helicopter being piloted by remote control by Blofeld. It's clearly Blofeld. He's bald. He's in the same suit. He's in a wheelchair. He's got a cat, but they just don't show his face. I'm not going to lie. Like, I get that they kind of... I guess it was a big FU from what I've heard. Calvin Dyson, like I said, check out his channel. But he said he knows more about this stuff. But he said, you know, it's basically... The studio was like, look, you think we need Blofeld in these movies. We don't, and we're just killing him off right here. For me, because you don't show the face, it just seems like a really cheap thing to do. But I get it doesn't completely take me out of the movie. I just didn't love that opening sequence. But anyway, that happens. We get the opening, the song title sequence. For Your Eyes Only, I normally can find pleasure in just about any Bond song. For Your Eyes Only, I think off the top of my head, as of right now, I think it's the weakest Bond song that I've ever heard. It's like For Your Eyes Only. I just don't. I'm fine with a woman singing it because I believe For Your Eyes Only does pretty much sound like it should be coming from a woman, like a girl being like, hey, you know, this is just for you. But I don't think the girl that they got to do it, Sheena Easton, I believe is the girl's name. I didn't love that song. I didn't love the melody of it. I didn't really love anything by it. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't sound like a Bond song. So it's not really orchestral to me. Like, part of being a Bond song, you have an orchestral sound. You take a song that you could put on the radio, but you can add the orchestral stuff to it. So yeah, didn't love that. And then we break away from that. And anyway, I'm not going to go over every single scene, but basically there's a guy and his wife are in the the Mediterranean area, I believe, and they're trying to dive and examine and explore the wreckage and try to find, because I think the British government hired this guy and his wife to be like, hey, we need you to go track down and see if you can find like what happened, if that ATAC is still there. And I think he was about to deliver his findings as where he thinks the ship is, and basically he gets killed. Their daughter, who the Bond girl, I think her character's name is Melina. I don't remember what the actress's name. She's not, I don't think I'd put her in like top 5 Bond girls, but like she's beautiful. Her character, the English is a little rough sometimes, but she's got a fierce look. Like, she does a fierce look on her face where it's like, you know, she means business. And the relationship that her and Roger Moore, that James Bond has in this movie, they do very well of not forcing a romantic relationship. I mean, obviously at the end they get there, but you know, she just lost her parents, so it's like the times that they spend with each other, it's not, hey, let's hook up. It's James being like, this girl's hurting, I'm trying to get a job done. Which I like this about this Roger Moore, this version of his character, that he was very like job focused, wanted to get this done. He was not really messing around. He has a really good moment in this movie where the guy that he's been after, like for the first half of the movie or whatever, he finally like gets him, and his car's like hanging off a cliff, and like James like sees like this little like dove piece, like little medallion or something that was left, a pin, when one of his buddies got killed, and he basically was like, oh, you forgot this, and then he just kicks the car off the cliff. I was like, that's pretty cool. And I'd seen that clip before, but finally getting to watch it was awesome. Yeah, so basically James and this girl Melina, who lost her family, they get shot up by I think he's Cuban, but a guy that basically is in the plane that drops the daughter off turns back around and guns them down. And so basically Melina is after like the revenge of her parents, wanting to try to find out like who really did this, and James is obviously after the truth as far as like, okay, well, what's the reason why we haven't, obviously someone's trying to cover that up and wants that ATAC for themselves. So you get introduced to a character pretty early on, Julian Glover's character. I think his name is Christatos. I might have that wrong, but basically he's a pretty forgettable Bond villain. I loved him as a Indiana Jones villain. He's in Star Wars. He's in Game of Thrones. He's a really good actor. I just don't think he was either given much to chew on in this one. His character, the accent is okay. I did like I think it's his niece, but maybe I'm wrong. There's a little like a girl that's an ice skater that basically he's sponsoring, but it's pretty obvious that he wants to do something with that girl. He says it's his niece, but I don't buy that. And if it is, still they have a weird relationship. But the niece, I liked her character. I thought she was interesting because she tries to get with James, but James is like 30 years older than her. And he just was like, even this is too weird for me. He's like, I can't go for that. So basically there's some assassins that basically James notices when he goes to confront the original guy that gunned down her parents at a party at his estate or whatever. And that's when he meets Melina, the girl. That's when they run into each other. And there's a good chase scene after that. But yeah, James notices the guy that basically did the money handoff of like, hey, the Cuban was paid off by somebody. They have a cool gadget. Some people, I guess, don't like this gadget, but it was basically you give the computer, and this is back in 1981, but you give the computer details about someone's face, and you can narrow it down, and the computer does its best job of like tracking down who looks the most like this or whatever, and it just gives you a guy, prints it out. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it's 1981 technology, and at the time that seemed like pretty crazy, so I thought it was cool. And anyway, they kind of go on an adventure. First, they go to like the Winter Olympics. James separates himself from Melina, the girl, after they leave that guy's estate. And then, they eventually go to the Winter Olympics and they're separate, and then they meet up again. And she's like, hey, you sent me like a telegram or something saying to come here. He's like, no, I didn't. I didn't do that. So there's some sketchy stuff right off the bat. That sequence, the stuff at the Winter Olympics, I thought some of the scenery is pretty cool. Honestly, I think this movie does a really good job of showing you some different places. I think it really gets better once they get to Greece, which I believe is where they go. Yeah, they go to Greece. He meets that Christatos guy again, because initially he's set up by like an undercover agent. I think it's Italian. And they go over and they're talking about this. And Christatos is trying to basically pin all this on another guy. I think his name's Columbo. And Columbo, if I never bought it. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Like I said, the guy with the biggest prestige as the bad guy, you normally like, or that's another character. You're like, that's the real bad guy. Personally, for me, I don't need a lot of like twists and turns in a Bond movie. Like you almost expect like, oh, when's the twist coming? That this person's going to be revealed. I honestly like it better when it's just like, this is your bad guy. You know this is your bad guy. You may not be fully introduced to his character. Like Dr. No, you're not fully introduced to who Dr. No is. You just hear about him and like his presence is felt throughout the movie, even when he's not on screen. I think that works better. Or you could do something like, you know, in Casino Royale with Le Chiffre, where Le Chiffre is the bad guy of that film, but there's bigger stuff going on. So it's not like plot twist. It's just more like, this isn't all that you're only seeing a little bit of behind the curtain. You're not seeing everything. So yeah, and anyway, they go to Greece soon after the winter stuff, the being at the Winter Olympics. I don't remember exactly where they're at. I think they were in Italy, but maybe I was wrong. But eventually they go to Greece, and they're trying to basically get in there's some plot that I don't think works all that well. This movie is not hard to follow, which I give it props, because I watched. I mean, I'll spoil it now, but I watched The Living Daylights and License to Kill for the first time in the last couple nights, and I'll get to actually doing my review of those. Those are two I won't rewatch just because they're so fresh, but every other movie I'll actually rewatch when I pull it up, when I do random numbers. But anyway, Living Daylights I felt like was way too much in the plot, and I was actually refreshed when I watched Calvin Dyson's review. Calvin said the same thing. He's like, it was just a little too many plot points. And I was like, yeah, I felt like that too, because I could not keep track of that general, what he was up to, whatever. I'll get all to that when I do that review. But anyway, this was refreshing that it was a more simple concept. It was more straight line. I know I've heard from many Bond fans that they basically say after Moonraker, the studio, everybody was like, just reel it in, the pun of bring it back down to earth, but like reel it back in and get more focused on like realistic stuff. And I mean, it's not the most realistic plot, I guess, but I feel like they did that. And the things I remember from the Grease stuff is basically that you do find out eventually that Christatos is the main bad guy, and basically James and Melina go down in her like father's like little like deep sea like scavenger, I don't know what you call that, the ship that they basically go in and explore. They go down, they try to get the ATAC because they figured out like the location like from his dad's like mapping or whatever. They try to get the ATAC. They're down there. They get attacked by one guy that's in this weird like water suit. That scene I thought was pretty good, and then they get attacked by another guy, and I mean, I was still tense because I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen. They get out of that, they get back to their boat, and Christatos, I think, I want to look back at the guy's name just so I'm like making sure I don't mess this up. Let me go. Julian Glover in this. Oh, missed it. Let's back out of that. Hold on. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I have his name right because the last thing I want to do is not have that. Yeah, Christatos. Yeah, so I was right. Let me get back to my recording. Okay, so yeah, so they get back on the boat after they've been down there and they have the ATAC and basically like surprise, like the guys that were on your boat, they're pretty much, we are led to believe they're dead. And yeah, so basically he's like, yeah, thanks for giving that ATAC for me. He's like, you did all my hard work for me. And then he ties them up. And I think this is actually a really good sequence. He ties them up, just their hands and their like waist together. And he's like, you don't need to bind their legs. He's like, it's good like shark bait. Like the sharks will be drawn to them. And anyway, I think James has a cut on him from, I think it was like his water suit got cut by the guy that attacked him like under the, in the underwater, the wreckage of the ship. Anyway, so he's like, all right, cool. Well, like, you're already bleeding. So he's like, we're going to tie you to the back of our boat. You'll just be dragged along. And basically the sharks will eventually get you because we'll stop and give them time to get in there. And James gets out of that situation. I do like the Melina. I like, you see like a closeness because obviously they're on the verge of death. But there's a closeness with their relationship that I really like. Like I said, Melina is really easy on the eyes. I thought she was a good-looking Bond girl. Acting, like I said, maybe could have been a little better as far as the accent. Because she is hard to understand sometimes. But that being said, I thought her eyes never like lost focus where I was like, oh, she's out of this. She's not focused. No, she was like engaged the whole time. So yeah, that basically happens. Christatos, Julian Glover's character leaves them for dead, thinking they're dead because he basically doesn't see them anymore. James like cut himself on some like coral reef, cut like the rope away, or I guess he tied himself around a rock, and it basically like broke free. And yeah, so he was like, all right, we're going to go back on the boat. And soon after that, they end up, they figure out from the parrot. The parrot heard the conversation before in the scene about like where the ATAC is going to be sold and where they're going to meet. They're trying to sell it off to the Russians. And anyway, yeah, that's where the finale of the movie happens. They make up, I don't think it's a real city. I think I forgot what it was called. But basically, it's, I don't know exactly where it's at, but it's like a very mountainous location that's like in real life would be extremely hard to get to, and there was kind of like a monastery or like there was a holiness there. I don't know if it was Christian. It might have been, and if someone knows, I mean, don't try to ridicule me, but I believe it was a Christian monastery or something, temple that was basically up on this mountaintop that was so hard to get to. And anyway, it's kind of a cool finale scene. James has to rock climb his way up there, gets really close to like almost dying. But after he gets past that, it's just, there's not a whole lot really that's like that enjoyable. The finale of how the bad guy dies isn't all that enjoyable. So basically this movie, I'll just get down to it. My takeaway from For Your Eyes Only is I don't think there's anything bad in here. I don't look at anything I'm like, oh, that's cringeworthy, that doesn't work, whatever. I think everything works. It's just this movie lacks like memorable stuff that you're like, because the bad guy is not memorable. The Bond girl, she looks great, and her motivations are good and everything like that. I just think her performance, they didn't give her a whole lot, or maybe she didn't. Like I said, I don't think English was that girl's first language. Maybe I'm wrong. And yeah, I just think Roger was playing it really serious, as he should have, I thought. But there's just not a whole lot of time for romance and all the, the one-liners and the witty stuff. It's not as much in this movie as there is in like the previous Roger Moore movies. So yeah, the way, I'm not going to give it my ranking yet as far as all the James Bond movies, but my rating, the ratings that I normally give, I've told you guys before, but basically there's like $5 bin is like, that if you want to throw some money out or whatever. I would call this more of a guilty pleasure in the sense of, I do give this a positive review because it's a Bond movie that works. I just can't like be like, oh yeah, you gotta buy or own this movie. Like, unless you're a Bond fan that wants to collect everything, if you're just a movie fan, I would say For Your Eyes Only is not something you have to have. I just think it's like, okay, you want to sit down and watch a Bond movie that maybe you haven't seen as many times as the other ones. I think For Your Eyes Only can work for that, but it's a very grounded movie. And like I said, it just lacks a lot of memorable sequences, I feel like. So anyway, that's my review for Your Eyes Only. I know what my next, I did it this morning, what my random number generator, the next Bond movie is. And you guys will see, actually, I'll just give it away. I got lucky. It was the next one right after For Your Eyes Only, so it was Octopussy, which is another one that I've actually never seen. So looking forward to doing that review. Hopefully I can get that to you guys a couple days after this one comes out. And yeah, thanks for watching.